So I did have some technical issues with this video and I've lost all the video for the two videos I recorded today. So instead of seeing my lovely face, I shall do you some overlays of book covers and such like. I hope you enjoy it still. Do let me know if you prefer this format or really don't like it, just want to see my beautiful face, then do let me know in the comments below. Hello everybody, Robin here and I'm back with another book video for you. This is take two. I've just recorded the whole of this thing without realising I hadn't started the video. If you remember, I've decided to move to monthly videos about the books I've been reading, so monthly previews and then monthly reviews of those books I've read, and I have to say, I've really enjoyed it. I've had a real focused target to try and get the books read within the month, and I've done pretty well this month, but I've also enjoyed not having to kind of try and find time for reviews, make reviews, edit reviews in the month. It means I've really had to focus on my reading, which I've really enjoyed, so I think I'm going to carry on doing it this way. So my first book this month was Barbara Kingsolver's Demon Copperhead, a book that I was a bit worried about starting. It's a great big thick 600 plus pages and it's obviously a very kind of deep literary fiction novel. A little bit worried about it, but actually I really enjoyed it. It wasn't a chore to read. I did set aside some time each day to read it, to get through it. It's my book club choice this month. I wanted to make sure I got through it. And I didn't, although I did set myself a time aside each day to do it, I didn't find it a chore to do. I was looking forward to reading it. I read it beyond those times because it is a really good involving read and you want to find out what's going to happen to poor old Demon over the course of his narrative. It does parallel the narrative of David Copperfield, although I haven't actually read that, so it didn't particularly help me. It's not a particularly cheery book. It deals with abject poverty, it deals with substance abuse, it deals with kind of child abuse. It's pretty, although not too graphic on that. I'm not a massive fan of books that feature child abuse. There is some kind of physical abuse in there, but nothing too dark. But it is very. It's a book about society. It's a book about society's failings. It's a book about how in rich, wealthy America, it tends to still leave behind people in the hinterlands, if you like. It's set in the Appalachians, and it's devastating, particularly about how the pharmaceutical companies moved into those areas and left swathes of people addicted to opiates. It's a huge problem in the US. I hadn't quite realised the depth of the problem until reading this book. Would thoroughly recommend it. Not a great deal happens, but much like Dickens, it just really charts the sort of societal problems of the time. Obviously he was writing about Victorian Britain, and Barbara Kingsolver was writing about modern day America. And it's a really thought-provoking, eye-opening read. I mean, it's had plaudits everywhere. Everybody loves this book. It's won the Pulitzer, I think. It's been nominated for several prizes, and it is well worth a read. You won't regret it if you pick it up. It requires a bit of effort, but not too much effort. Kingsolver's writing is always readable, so I recommend you do pick up Demon Copperhead if you're thinking about it. Rather different and rather smaller next is Katherine Rundell's Why You Should Read Children's Books, Even Though You Are So Old and Wise. Really looking forward to reading this. Katherine Rundell wrote the brilliant Impossible Creatures, and I read a lot of children's books, and I sometimes feel like I shouldn't. And it's kind of this. If you are like that, this will tell you why you absolutely should read children's books. Why children's books are brilliant. Which, if you do read children's books like I do, then you'll know why. They're often very tightly plotted. They don't mess about. They're unpretentious, and they have some really good kind of themes and issues that they explore as well. And you obviously, if you're going to entertain children, you have to tell a good story. You can't. No page can be wasted, and Katherine Rundell expands on that and expands on why literary snobbery is a particularly bad thing. So if you want to feel better about yourself, if you love children's books, then do read this. If you want to try and explain to somebody why you love children's books, then stick this under their nose. It's well worth a look. Possibly my favourite book of the month was Sarah Hager-Holt's The Fight That Makes Us. It's just really good, very enjoyable, but very informative too. It's about the LGBT community, as you can probably tell from the cover. It's about a young non-binary person who is at school and they're asked to do a history project. They end up researching, through a family connection, they end up researching the Section 28 protests from the 1980s. So this book made me feel very old because I'm old enough to remember those, although I don't remember them. I remember them happening. I don't remember them in great detail. I think I was about 10 or 11 when they went on. But it talks about the fight for acceptance and the central character, Jessie, their fight for acceptance as being non-binary in their school as well. And it's just a really great melding of great story, interesting characters, and a lovely kind of examination of the importance of social history and why studying history can be great. And just everything about the book works, and I really enjoyed it. It's very moving, and it kind of explains why a diverse society is brilliant, and why we should be more accepting, and the kind of pain caused by not being accepting. And a lot of people should read this book, whether you have LGBTQ relatives or you are LGBTQ yourself. Lots of other people should still read this book. Everybody should read it, really. I think the world would be a better place if everybody read Sarah Hager-Holt's The Fight That Makes Us, so go for it. Brilliant book. Next up, slightly lighter, was the Shadowhall Academy by Phil Hicks, The Whispering Walls, a classic boarding school, St. Trinians-ish, not really, but that kind of thing, school caper set in a big spooky house school with ghosts and ghoulies and things, and just really, it's a really good story. It's got good characters and some sort of macabre habits. It's a children's book, it's never too scary, it's not too gory or anything, it's just a little bit spooky, a little bit macabre, keeps you reading. Very much enjoyed that. Next up is the Blackhole Cinema Club by Christopher Edge. Christopher Edge writes fantastic books based on kind of quite high concept physics, and somehow amazingly turns them into really, really good stories for children about 10 upwards. The Blackhole Cinema Club is no exception. Black holes do feature, and it is set in the opening of the book that is these children going to this amazing kind of immersive cinema experience in their local town, and things go from there. It is literally the most immersive cinema experience you've ever had, but why and what's going on, you'll have to read it to find out, but I do thoroughly recommend it. It's out in March, out on the 14th of March by Nosy Crow in the UK. And it's, as usual, mind-bending, has content in it that really shouldn't work in a novel, but absolutely do, thanks to the brilliance of Christopher Edge. I've never read a bad Christopher Edge novel, so if you don't want to wait for this to come out in the next couple of weeks, pick out any others. They're always really slim as well. That's what amazes me. You get so much sort of punch in just sort of small, slender volume when you read a Christopher Edge book. Thoroughly recommend it. Well worth reading. Moving on to slightly more adult-focused novels now, we have Godkiller by Hannah Kaner. This was the Waterstones science fiction fantasy book of the month for January, so I read it in February. My New Year's resolution was to try and read each one sort of the month after it came out and report back how I found it. Really enjoyed this one. It's a kind of post sort of not apocalypse, but there's been a big battle. The gods have been fought, the gods have been defeated. Religion is now kind of outlawed. There's lots of different gods. Worshipping them is illegal now. But there's a story to do with trying to find a god to actually help save the kingdom. So it's kind of interesting in that respect. There's a kind of dichotomy going on there. It's a fascinating examination of the sort of importance of relief and superstition and sort of faith to the functioning of society, but also very much a story about the perils of doing so and sort of fundamentalism and that kind of thing. So I really enjoyed it. It's a multi-layer book, but as well as that, it's a fantasy book. There's some great magic, there's some great fight scenes, there's several really, really good characters, and I really enjoyed it. It's really good. It's kind of similar in nature to the Iden saga that I reviewed a couple of months ago. They got a pleasing symmetry, so you could happily read both of those and draw different things out of each of them, but kind of see how they work together. So I recommend both of those. That's Godkiller by Hannah Kaner. Second book I think has just come out. I'm looking forward to reading that, though I will wait for it to come out in paperback almost certainly. But I recommend Godkiller if you haven't read it. I've seen that it's been up in the Times bestseller charts for quite a long time, so it's obviously a popular read and deservedly so. The Descent by Paul E. Hardesty is a companion novel to The Forcing, which I read last year. Paul Hardesty is an environmentalist and he really knows his beans when it comes to climate change and possible climate apocalypse. This book is set after a climate apocalypse along with The Forcing. This book both looks at the events that happened alongside what was going on in The Forcing, or almost like a prequel, but then it also moves forward in time from the finish of that. So you do kind of need to read The Forcing first. I would recommend that you do read them both. Together, they make this amazing whole, which I think is really good. This one informs what happened in the Forcing. It makes the Forcing seem even deeper. This is a really deep novel. It's a really interesting examination of the power structures of the world, how we have now kind of let sort of really big, influential people with lots and lots of money kind of run things, and we just kind of assume that they do it with our best interests at heart. So it really looks about the sort of perils of allowing people, unelected people often, with lots and lots of money kind of run things and control us using the media and things like that. It's a really relevant book. There's a Donald Trump character in the book who does get elected for a second time, and the book does take place in 2024, so it's kind of, well, so part of it does, so that's where it kicks off from. So there are definite echoes of the real world. Hopefully what's going to happen in the future isn't as gloomy as what's depicted in The Descent, but I can see how it could be, particularly if somebody unscrupulous or just, you know, really with their interests at heart rather than sort of humanity's interest at heart could totally do us over. So that's The Descent. It is not a cheery read, but it is a brilliant one, and I thoroughly recommend it. Some great characters in here, really interesting, thoughtful ideas, and some great set pieces too, so well worth reading is The Descent. The Dragons of Deepwood Fen. I haven't quite finished this. I'm only about a third of the way to half the way through it. It's a great big thick book. Cites influences such as Robin Hobb. Now, I'm not a big Robin Hobb fan, and it is a little bit, I find her books a bit woolly. This is so far is a little bit woolly, I would say, but it also cites Tolkien as an influence too, and I would say Tolkien is a bit woolly too sometimes, but I really like him, so I'm not really very consistent there. This has got some Tolkien elements. It's kind of a really strong, deep secondary world fantasy with lots of stuff going on, and I think that's why there's quite a lot of exposition in the opening 250 pages, kind of explaining who everybody is, what everybody is, how the religion works, how the dragons fit in. There's lots of dragons, which is really good. How it all works together. There's quite a lot of political intrigue, so it's taken quite a long way to set up. Started to feel like it's beginning to pay off now, and we'll report back and see how I got on. It is enjoyable. If you like deep, complex, rich fantasy, I would check this out. Particularly if you like dragons, so I'll report back further how I go for the rest of it, probably in my March video. But yes, it is enjoyable so far. Just takes a little bit of effort, unlike Godkiller and the Iron Saga, which I read recently, which you just fall straight into immediately. This requires a little bit more effort to work your way into, but I often find those books are the ones that stick with you, so stay tuned. So that's February. I hope you enjoyed that. I've read quite a lot of books. I'm looking at my March pile, it's even bigger, so that's obviously going to fail. But you check that out. I'll be out in a couple of days' time too, what I'm going to read in March. Do let me know if you've read any of these. Do let me know what you're reading, what you read in February. Just let's talk books. I'll see you soon. Bye!